Oh,
Oboe.
Yeah. Paul's David Bowie. I'm Willie Nelson.
I'm David Bowie.
Oh,
oh. Holy
Uh,
cow.
pick it up.
Oh, just a sec. Let me get this so you can see that a little better. There you go. There we are.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
A little better. Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to our Sunday night offering of astronomy outreach, the Sunday night astronomy show.
Hey!
Hey. My name is Chris Kerwin. I'm the creator of the social media channels known as Astronomy by the Bay. I'm also an astronomer
Sorry, it's a little early.
and a member of the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada. Anyway, I would like to welcome back my two regular co-hosts this evening, Mr. Paul Owen from the Moon Shadow Observatory in Hampton. Paul, good evening, sir.
Hello.
Nice hello.
I'm starting to think regular is a relative term.
Just say my two co-hosts, yeah. Also, Mr. Mike Powell from the PFO Observatory, St. John. Mike. Hey. All right, and we'd like to welcome all of you from YouTube and Facebook land joining us tonight. Thank you so much for your support. And on tonight's episode of the Sunday Night Astronomy Show, according to the well-known story in the Gospel of Matthew, the Star of Bethlehem, the Christmas star, guided the three Magi, or wise men, to Jerusalem some 2,000 years ago. Now, scholars have long pondered the idea of a special celestial event, not just from a religious perspective, but also from a scientific one. Was it a supernova? Was it an alignment of planets? A comet? Tonight we invite back our local astronomy expert, Kurt Nason, to help explain what the current science tells us about this ancient mystery. Kurt, welcome back, sir. Nice hat.
Well, thank you. And
It
happy
was-
Easter, everybody.
Four wise men.
Yeah.
Okay.
3.5.
Your rough night. Okay. Anyway, also tonight, Mino Bud will return with another fine binocular target of the week. We're having a little trouble with Rosanna's fun fact this evening. LinkedIn didn't quite work, so we might not have a Rosanna's fun fact, but we'll have a look at some of your photos that you've sent in, at least for sure, and we'll just have maybe a little bit of discussion on how the year went, because we will not be having a show next week.
No.
Okay, so let's get started then with tonight's program and a look at the story and the science behind the Christmas star. Mr. Nason, sir.
All right.
And Chris Baldick says, hi from rainy London. Chris, every time you're on here, it says rainy London, Ontario. Wishing you clear skies, buddy.
Sounds like he's in London, England.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Christmas planet on the Sunday Night Astrology Show. That's what this is about.
Okay.
About 3 years ago, around this time, the RSC had a guest speaker talking about this book, The Star of Bethlehem by Michael Molnar. It's a legacy of the Magi. And it was a very interesting talk. And so I went and I bought the book and read that. And sort of a scientific mystery, although the science actually goes into astrology, which was the science of a few thousand years ago. And so it was a really good book. So I put this together a bit. And so we'll see what it's up. So we'll start off with another book called Matthew, in chapter 2 of that book. It says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, where's the one who's been born the King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east when it rose and have come to worship him. Now, I got that underlined in there because the rest of this is on one of the Revised Standard Versions, and the King James Version actually has in there in the east, which sort of comes up here later on. When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. In Bethlehem in Judea, they replied, for this is what the prophet has written. And the prophet was Balaam. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel. When Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I may go and worship him." After they heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down, just like Paul does a bow on there now, and worshipped him. They opened their treasures and presented him with the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So this brings up a lot of questions for astronomy. What was that star? Was it a comet, supernova, a conjunction of two or more planets, very, very close to look like a bright star? Something that was really catch their mind, or catch the eye, and make them think there's a really good omen happening here. Well, comets, actually, comets were always seen to be a bad omen, so that doesn't seem to fit here. And if it had been like a great comet, surely there would be some record of it somewhere around that time, because you have some records of comets going back even before that. A supernova, you might expect there to be, it would have to be in our galaxy, because supernova in another galaxy is not going to get really bright. And the last one we had in our galaxy was about 400 years ago or so, Kepler had seen. And if that one showed up, again, even 2,000 years ago, there might have been some record of it. Over 1,000 years ago in China, we had the one in 1054, and that's from which the Crab Nebula was formed. You might think there'd be a record of that somewhere. And conjunction, yeah, that could be, and there had been some conjunctions around that time. But there might be some other one. The obvious one is maybe it's a made-up story, apocryphal. And another one was, depending on where your beliefs lie, it was a miracle. So maybe the Lord had made some really bright light there that was seen by the wise men, couldn't be seen by the people in Judea. Apparently saw by these people much farther away. They came from the east. So who were these wise men, and where did they come from? Why did they think a king was born? And if they saw the star in the east, why go west to Judea and specifically to Jerusalem? And why did no one in Judea apparently see that star? And why did the star go before them and stand over where the young child was? I mean, you've been watching the sky, the stars and things like don't act like that whatsoever. All right, a little bit of mystery, to which we turn astrology. All right, so the Magi, according to the research that Mike Wallner had done, the Magi were astrologers. Now, they get interested in this. He's also a coin collector. And there's a coin back from early first century, and it's actually several coins that had a ram on the coin, and some would also have Jupiter. And so you get wondering why that is. So this is a very important time, like early in the year 10. Well, they didn't even call it year 10 again, anything like that, because that goes maybe 400 years before they come up with the AD BC thing. And that led him to trying to figure out if that had any relation to, let's say, the birth of Jesus. Right now, astrologers back then, they likely came from Chaldea, which is in Iraq. So he had Tigris and Euphrates rivers there, civilization jumping up from that. And there'd also been Babylonia, Mesopotamia over the years in these areas. And astrology started probably a few thousand years ago in Chaldea. They'd be very intelligent people, and they'd be watching. These were the astronomers of the time, and they'd be watching the stars over many, many, many generations and recording the movement of these things that were moving against the stars. And that would be the sun and the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So look at them as maybe 7 planets. So the planet is the Greek word for wanderers for the sky. So those 7 things are moving. Maybe they had something to do with people. Somebody was born in a particular time. Maybe his life was influenced by the stars, and particularly by these wandering ones. And over a long period of time, they were treated as royalty pretty much. You have the song there, "We Three Kings of Orient Are." These are the astrologers were the really smart people, and the kings of the land relied on them to look at the sky and come up with omens, good or bad, that they could use. And particularly if they could predict when eclipses are going to happen or occultations, things like that, they could use to for their own plans, being able to maybe predict the future and know what's coming up. And so the positions of the planets, say here, they were calculated. So the Chaldeans, they had all that information from generations of what's happening in the sky. Later on, the Greeks picked up on that. And so the people in Greece were moving into that area as well, back and forth. In fact, Alexander the Great conquered that area, conquered the Chaldean area. And more or less got rid of the Chaldean astrology, but by then the Greeks had picked up astrology as well. But the Greeks also invented geometry and so parts of math. So eventually combined the two, and the astrologers were able to calculate where planets would be. So they actually no longer looked at the sky, they calculated the positions of planets. And then they'd go every now and then check the sky to make sure that nothing had changed. And after there were changes, then they would make the corrections for that. So they had the ecliptic that we know of, with the sun's path through the sky, where you also have the planets and the moon going roughly that same area. The sky broken up into, well, based on 12 constellations there, but in astrology, they're not known as constellations anymore. They're known as signs. So even back 2,000 years ago, if you look at the newspaper, March 21st is the beginning of Aries. And back then, the sun would have been in Aries around at the first of spring. Right, so that was an important one. Any place where the ecliptic and the celestial equator cross, that would be in springtime, that would be the first day of spring. And that's called the first point of Aries, and it goes back to that time. Now, for astronomers, where they cross, that's the 0 point for right ascension. So it's right ascension 0 starts right at that point and increases as you go east. But in astrology, that first point of Aries, the first 30 degrees of that is the sign of Aries. Then the next 30 degrees would be the sign of Taurus. So the 12 signs of the zodiac, each one is 30 degrees wide and goes right through the 12 for the 360 degrees. And they'd worked out over the years that each of the planets had their own powers. Each of the particular signs of the zodiac had their particular powers and incorporated different things in there. If you were born under, say, under Aries, you would have those powers of Aries. And if it happened to be maybe a planet or two within that at the time, more power assigned to you. If you're born in the morning, it might be better than if you're born in the evening or later on in the day. So depending on the time of day you were born, has a relation to it. There are differences for genders, like there are 5 signs for a female and 7 signs for male. And they also had the zodiac signs are each associated with geographical areas in those times. And in Judea, that was Aries. So why would they think a king was born based on what they maybe had seen or calculated? Well, there are different things that can go on here. There's exaltations. So any planet associated with a particular sign, and each sign had a particular planet. So if you were born and that particular planet was in that sign at the time you were born, there's a little more power toward you for that one. And so for Aries, that planet is the sun. They have the trines, and these are the zodiacal signs that are 120 degrees ahead and behind that one. So the trines for Aries would be signs of Leo and the signs of Sagittarius. And each of the 4 trines in the sky had 3 controlling planets. And for the trine for Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, they were the Sun, Jupiter, and Saturn. So when you were born, if maybe the Sun was in Aries, there's extra there. Maybe the Saturn might have been in, say, Sagittarius. There's a little more power for you there. Maybe if Jupiter and Saturn were in Leo, 2 of them in one of those controlling one of those sections, one of those trines, even more power. And if you had all three of those in, say, your birth sign, it's sort of like superpower. Right? Cardinal points. So these are 30 degrees wide. Ascendant is in the east, where the sun would be rising. So that's the ascendant. So maybe you were born at a time when maybe your sign was in the east and one of those planets is in that, there's even more extra power there for you. If you move up to the zenith, the ecliptic of east, we call that midheaven, midheaven. Right? So there's maybe not quite as much power involved with that as the ascendant. If you happen to be born at a time when these are at about setting, you're in the descendant, and you have less power there, and maybe some more evil powers or bad things for you. And the what we call the lowest point, the nadir, would be anti-midheaven. So if you're involved with that one, then perhaps you don't have a lot of good powers. You might have some bad things associated with it. Add to that, there are attendant planets. So these are related to the sun and the moon. So if the sun is preceded by Jupiter or Saturn, right, you're protecting the sun. So there's a little bit extra energy or power for you in that one. Or if the moon is followed by Venus or Mars in the sky when you're born, you're protecting the moon. So maybe if the moon was your exaltation, be extra energy there for you. Okay. Mercury's not in there, so Mercury was a wild card more or less. It could be good or bad. And you have some add-on things here as well. So if there's an occultation occurring about the time you're born, so the moon passing in front of one of the planets, maybe even one of the bright stars, it can pass in front of four of the first magnitude stars. There'd be some extra energy or extra powers in there for you. And eclipses would be another one as well. Maybe good or bad. So all of this goes into it. And if we put them all them together, then the more the stuff you see that are working in your favor there, more important person you're going to be in later in life. And if you get all of them together, you're definitely going to be a king, or maybe even beyond that. So that's the magic of astrology. So, Molnar decided, well, let's see what happened around the time when Jesus was born to see what was in the sky at that time. And then he was particularly wanting to look to see if there were any occultations. The first thing you had to do is, when was Jesus born? And so it's not December 25th. I've known that for a long time. As in Luke, it says that when he's born, shepherds are in the fields. So this is springtime. They've got the sheep that had their lambs, and they're looking after them out there in the field. Herod, there's really nothing specific that says when Herod died, but he was looking at different things and figured out, okay, he probably died in 4 BC. Right, now Jesus must have been born at least 2 years before that. Right, because he was born when the wise men went there, they were talking to Herod, and the 2 years comes from. Remember earlier on there, the wise men the Magi were visited by more a spirit and told not to go back to Herod, because Herod was looking to kill the child, so they took another way home, and it took a couple of years before Herod realized that he's been had, and this is the time of put the order out for the slaughter of the innocents and looking for any child or male child at least 2 years old or less, and kill them so they wouldn't be the king come and usurp him. And so figured, okay, Herod about 4 BC, so that gives you maybe at least 6 BC for time, and there are several other things that work into there as well. So we use a planetarium program, say like Stellarium, to look for any occultations. So Jupiter would be a good one. But maybe look at the other ones as well and spread that out from 10 BC to 5, well, I'll call it back then 5 AD. 15-year spread. And look to see what they had for occultations at that time. And two occultations of Jupiter came up in that span. March 20th and April 17th in 6 BC. Right now, it's not all that odd to see occultations of Jupiter just 1 month apart. I've seen two of them, and they were 1 month apart. I got to see both of them. And so looked a little farther when the planetary program, and the one on March 20th, it was Jupiter and the moon, but they were too close to the sun to actually maybe be calculated, or too close to be seen. And in astrology, if something was close to the sun's heat would blow off any of its powers, right? So the planet had to be far enough away from the sun for it to have the powers associated with it. So it'd be called when you can see it before the sun rises, actually visually see it, it's called the helical rising, right? And with this, it's going to vary on the brightness of the planet and also the angle of the ecliptic. Now, what they did for the planets back then, they calculated how far away from the sun particular planets had to be before you were able to see it due to the brightness of the sun. And the calculation for Jupiter is about 12 degrees. So it had to be about 12 degrees west of the sun before we'd be able to see it in the morning sky, just before the sun rises. So the one on March 20th, Jupiter's too close. So it wouldn't have had any power. So it must have been April 17th in 6 BC. So what did the sky look like at that time? So we look at that particular one. Here's sunrise on April 17th, 6 BC. If you want to check this out, I've got this under here. Planetarium programs have the year 0. Right? But it wasn't when they come up with the AD BC dating, there wasn't any year 0. It went directly from -1 or 1 BC to 1 AD. So if you want to check something out on, say, Stellarium, on this or anything else in BC, you're going to have to add 1 year. So if you want BC, 6 BC, you'd have to enter in Stellarium. If you put in -6, you won't get that actually happened. You have to add 1, which would be -5. And here we have it. Here's the sun rising in the east. Here's Jupiter. Here's the moon. Now remember, the moon's moving this way, and it's going to be occulting Jupiter shortly after that. And one thing to remember about going back this far in planetarium programs, the farther back you go, the less accurate they're going to be, because they're stretching out a little bit too much there. Here's the ram. So this is in Aries. And so anybody born in Aries, their sun was their exaltation. All right, so here's the sun in Aries. Now there were two planets that were attendants to that. Right here, Jupiter and Saturn, the two attendants for it. And Saturn's just outside of Aries in there. We've got the moon and Jupiter inside of Aries. Up here is Venus. Okay, and it's, I think Venus is, one was, say the one before that, Pisces. Now down on the other side here, before sun rises, we've got Mars and Mercury not too far away down here. So when you're looking at this, all of those things that we've seen before, a lot of them have come together at that particular time. Now, maybe they saw that, or maybe they had calculated it. And calculating in that, they said, okay, there must have been a king born at this time. Now, if they don't know what time of day he might have been born, if they'd been in the morning, then they're in the ascendant, just after sunrise. It was later on in the day when that, they'd be in the mid-heaven, a few 4 or 5 hours later. There's still a lot of power associated with that, not as much as with ascendant, but at that same time, you've got that occultation going on. So there's some power away, but even more power may be coming in. But again, nobody knows what time of day it was. Right, so all of those come together, and here's what a horoscope might look like for that. Here's mid-heaven, ascendant. Here's the sign for Aries. Here's Venus, here in Pisces. Okay, it looks like Saturn at that time might have just still been within Aries. There's the moon, there's Jupiter, and there is the sun. Now down here in Taurus, we've got Mars and Mercury in here. And Mars is acting as an attendant for the moon up in here. And maybe Mercury is too, as a as a backup. So there's a lot of power going on there astrologically. So maybe when the three wise guys saw that, here's up here's where Judea is. All right. And Chaldea would be in around here somewhere. And you got anywhere from maybe 400 to 600 kilometers. So when they saw that, they have to, pack up the coolers and things like that to make a trek east. Because they want to, why are they going east? Well, it's in Aries, so the sign of Aries is country was Judea. So they're coming across this way and be a long trek. I'm not sure just how they're traveling. It's always pictured as being on camels. Whether they're traveling at night or during the day, it's hard to say. So you might not even seen that stuff. That might have been calculated. Although by that time, looking back on that previous one, I figured that Jupiter might have been 16 or 17 degrees east of the sun. And it might have been visible at the time. Okay, so they hike from here or travel from here over to Jerusalem. And here's Jerusalem and here's Bethlehem. They're about 10 kilometers apart. All right, so if they go back to some of those questions. If they saw a star in the east, why go west? Well, that was because the sun was in Aries, and Aries was the sign for Judea. So if something happened, this king would have been born somewhere in Judea. Where in Judea, we don't know. So let's go to the capital city, which was Jerusalem. So that's why they went there. Why did no one in Judea apparently see the star? Right. Well, one thing, if it was visible at all, was a heliacal rising. Heliacal rising. You might have to look for it if their astrologers weren't doing the calculations the same as the Chaldeans. Maybe they weren't as adept at it. Otherwise, actually, the Jews, they did not believe in astrology, at least not as much as other places. There are indications that they did do some astrology, but not nearly as much as other areas. So maybe Herod and his scientists there at maybe probably had astrologers there at the court as well. Maybe they weren't so much into calculating things. And so maybe if they didn't see that star, that's all it could be on the sun. So that's why nobody had seen it. All right, so then they went to Jerusalem. So they had the interview there with Herod, went down to Bethlehem, which is only 10 kilometers away. And as they set out, and this would have been months, probably months to get from where they were to Jerusalem. It wouldn't take nearly as long to get down there to Bethlehem. So they saw the star go before them. Well, this is what Molnar had done. He did some research on astrology back in that time. I remember 3 or 4 astrologers, they had records of them. And one of them was Claudius Ptolemy from 2nd century AD. And we all know him. He's the one that had written the Tetrabiblius, the Almagest. And he was a bit of astrologer himself, I guess. And so they had different terms back then than what we have now. So for them to go before meant what we look at as retrograde for a planet. For them, the normal precession of a planet relative to the stars is moving in the same direction as the stars, moving east to west against the stars. Now, for us, planets moving east to west, like Jupiter and Mars now, they're in retrograde, but they're now moving east to west with the stars, pulling to the west of the stars as they're going. So that's what that actually meant. It's a misinterpretation because they're not using the terminology of the astrologers at that time. So at that time, it was just starting, Jupiter was just starting to, say, retrograde and stand over the point where the young child was. So it's going to be stationary at its first stationary point, meaning it's reached its end of prograde motion. And as we look at it, and maybe it's going to hover in one spot for a while. We've seen Mars here over the last few weeks within binocular view of the beehive. It's just starting its retrograde. So according to astrologers, it's starting to go before them. And so it's standing over stationary point, or it's standing, And over doesn't mean directly over that. Over to them meant just up in the sky. And so it's standing over the point, so it's just over, and it means in the sky, not down on the ground. So you got a stationary point there, and it would have taken. Now, if you look at Jupiter when it's rising, right, about 4 months later, it's beginning its first its first stationary point where it starts to begin retrograde. 2 months later, it's at opposition, and then 2 months after that, its second stationary point, and picks up its normal for us eastward prograde motion. So, looking at the timing of that, I'm not sure, and I can't remember the book that actually says which stationary point, but that first stationary point makes a lot of sense because it's about 4 months from the time, well, 3.5 months maybe from the time they started out. Right, so astrology makes a pretty good explanation, perhaps, of what happened, because it does. You can work it around, so it does answer some of those questions that come up from just the terminology in the second chapter of Matthew. And to wrap it all up, this is your takeaway lesson. Astrology is an effective method of predicting the past.
Wow.
Merry Christmas.
I thought they used it for predicting your future.
Not quite as accurately.
Ah. Say it of me. Uh-oh.
No, if you're looking for an astronomy one, nope.
So an occultation of Jupiter is what we're talking about then.
No, that came later in that day, but that's just what led him to that. The whole thing was the astrological importance of the Jupiter being in Aries with the sun.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
There's an occultation coming up, which would have come in if the child had been born around midday.
Right.
Would have that extra there.
Okay.
That occultation is what him led to going back to find out if anything like that had happened, and all the rest of it just fell out. Good book.
Yeah. Interesting. Thanks, Kurt.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
It covers it all off, I guess.
And actually, that might still be up on the RASC website. Probably have an area where all these ones are up there. I think it was 3 years ago around this time of year.
Okay. Yeah, it's usually a quite common question this time of year for sure.
Hmm.
All right, thank you, sir. Okay, we're going to leave it there, and we're going to go on with the Bino Bud maybe next.
Oh, yeah.
Al?
Move this over here.
Mary says, "Good day, mateys." Good day, mate, Mary.
Alrighty. Binocular target of the week. This week is, and Kurt even mentioned it while he was talking, the Mars and the Beehive cluster.
No beehive.
That's not honey in my cup. Okay, Messier 44 or M44, known as the Beehive cluster, is an open cluster in the constellation Cancer. Has a very large cluster with an apparent magnitude of 3.7, and Mars is a fourth planet from the sun. The surface of Mars is orange-red because it's covered in iron oxide dust, thus giving it the name the Red Planet. But how do I find it in the sky? And on a beautiful night like tonight, if the moon doesn't wash it out, because the moon is pretty much full, go outside at 10 o'clock, orient yourself 82 degrees northeast, look up. You'll find Castor and Pollux, two bright stars, come all the way down. You'll see Regulus down below. Draw a line in between the two, and guess what? You'll hit the constellation Cancer, and you look right about the center of that, and you'll see it. It's there. What does it look like? Well, tonight, again, if the moon doesn't wash it out, this is what roughly you're going to see. The bright planet Mars and a nice beehive cluster right in the middle, or just below it. They're very, very close. 10 by 50 binoculars. Look at that. Right in the same field of view. Nice, easy. If you can spot the brightness of Mars, look down and you'll see the beehive right around it. It's pretty cool. Compared to the full moon, well, how do you compare it? It's going to fill up your whole field of view. Now, are you ready for this one? This is the best one yet, I think. What do you call a bee that lives in America? A US bee.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, man.
That's Binocular target of the week by Bino Bud.
Yeah. If I can expand on that, mentioned there before, my there is a Christmas attached to that. And there's an older name for that is Praecipe, which means manger. So, and there are two bright stars called the north of Celis and south of Celis, and these are donkeys. And you can see the beehives, particularly from a darker sky. You can see that with the naked eye. So that cluster of stars there, and remind people of hay in the manger. And so there's the sort of a Christian reference in there to that.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's why I picked it.
Yeah, good. I knew that. But they also use the beehive for a weather prediction. Because it's one that you can see naked eye, but if you couldn't see it, that means there's some light cirrus clouds coming in, which are at the forefront of a storm coming. So if they couldn't see the beehive, that tells them a day or two we're going to have a storm.
That's cool.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
No,
You can
serious
see
is
that
below
one.
it. He's a little below serious.
Serious does.
Huh?
They're not fluffing around. They're serious.
Speaking of Sirius, I think Bill Leonard mentioned, hi guys from Hoyt, quite the sparkling star last evening at
Yes.
9:30 p.m. coming up about 30 degrees off the horizon, bearing about 150 degrees from my location in Penfield, southeast. It was green, red, and white all at the same time.
Yeah.
Serious?
Guess we know what that is.
Wow.
Chromatic aberration.
Yeah. Eyeballs.
Yeah.
Mark 1 eyeballs.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Irish be coming up around then? Yeah.
In lieu of not having a Rosanna, I do have a little adventure I went on tonight, but I want Kurt to explain one of the photos. And actually, Chris could explain. It doesn't matter who. Either one can explain it. But it's just one of the things that a lot of people see every night, but they don't know what it is and they don't know what the phenomena is. So I went out to take some pictures of the moon tonight. I'll show you just a couple of those, but I want to show this first because it's one of my favorite things to see. And every time we're at Fun Day, we usually get a chance to see it. So I'm just going to share my screen. And then, Kurt, do you want to tell them what that is?
Looks like ice and some trees growing in it. Or are you talking about the belt of Venus behind there?
The belt of Venus. Is that not the belt of Venus?
Could very well be. Or what direction are you facing?
Yeah, it's where the moon's coming up, so he's looking northeast right there, I think.
Okay.
Because usually you see that when the sun is just going down, right? In the eastern sky.
Well, it's going to be opposite the sun.
Which it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's because where the moon's going to come up, I'll show you. It's going to be, you see the clump of trees in the center?
Yep.
That's
Okay.
exactly
That's that one.
So that's directly across from where the sun went down. So it's northeast, right?
Yeah. Right.
So
Okay. Go
whoops,
back to that one.
there you go.
All right. Can you see it's darker down below?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So that's often called the shadow of the earth, although it's technically not that. So you get the last rays of the sunshine, and the red is just the last ones being scattered. So that's what you're seeing. No sense of me pointing at my screen because you can't see that.
Right.
But it's a red part of the sunlight being
Right here.
scattered right there. And you see once you get down below it, that would be the last of the sunlight.
Yeah, 'cause
So it's dark there. It's not typically it's not actually the shadow. It's just that's where you're not getting any sunlight at all, and you'll be watching that shadow in quotes rising like that. But they're just looking at nighttime coming into your sky, and so the belt of Venus there is the last rays of sunshine, which are the red part of the spectrum, because the atmosphere breaks it up into the colors of the rainbow.
It doesn't last all that long either, eh?
No.
Visible in the morning sky too, Paul, in the west. Like if your sun's rising in the east, you'd see it in the western sky before sunrise too.
Right.
Yeah, this came on. This came on and left. I bet you within probably 7 to 8 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's why I want to find out. I mean, this is kind of what you would see if you saw it. Typically, it's really pink.
Yeah.
And this kind of had that. Now this may be refracted cloud. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's a refracted sunlight, but just the last bit of it, because over on the other side, on the other horizon, the atmosphere there is breaking up the sunlight into the colors of the rainbow, and it's really just that red part at the end where we really start to see it.
Right.
And
No,
then underneath it,
if there were no clouds there, would you see it?
yep, you do.
So it's not Earth's shadow. It's the beginning of night, basically.
Well, when I
Yeah.
when I saw this and I thought, okay, maybe there's some cloud coming in, and I may not see the moon rise. But then, but as you can see, as it popped up here, whoops, sorry, wrong page. Right church, wrong pew. There we go. It popped up. So there was absolutely no obscurity to the moon coming up at all, other than there was a very, very, very slight haze. Let me see if I can show you that one right there. This
Yeah.
was after it was up about, I don't know, maybe 10, maybe 5 to 8 degrees. So there is a little bit of cloud around it, but I'm assuming because it's so bright and we can see that cloud, that cloud's actually in the air, but we don't see it because it's not
Yeah.
being lit up by the moon, by anything else, right?
Now, it looks like the moon's in front of the clouds, so the clouds must be farther away than the moon there, Paul.
Nebula.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying is like you can see the haze and the little bit of cloud that's in front of the moon, correct?
Yeah.
So
And double Venus would be on the other side, or no?
so you can
over
see
there, yeah, yeah,
wispy clouds going on up here as well, right?
yeah.
So anyway, so I want to show that. Anyway, I want to show that and the fact that when you go out and see this, I got a little surprise, which was nice. The moon was just popping up over these houses, and it was over those clump of trees. And I never noticed, but there's an eagle sitting right there, and he's watching the moon rise. This is only the second time I got one. I got one once on the river with the eagle, right, like I got right in the picture of the moon. I was a lot closer, but it's just interesting to watch that because I don't know if they sit and watch them or if it's just coinkydink, but anyway, it was just cool to see. And then it came up a little bit more. The eagle was still there. Then he eventually took off, and we ended up with a really nice scene over some ice water and whatnot. So it was just a nice adventure out before the show tonight. So it was kind of fun.
Just takes a few minutes, doesn't it, Paul?
Yeah, the other night as I was watching for meteors, I was on my deck there and I'm back on a cot, and the moon was up high. It must have been in the morning. No, it might be late at night. And so the moon was getting pretty close to overhead. It's out of my direct view, but of course, all bundled up and had a hat on. And if I looked up just before the moon came into my vision, there was a beautiful corona, and it was very, very distinct. It would be there was a layer just outside of the moon, but then about maybe half a degree or degree wide, it was blue, and perfect circle around that, and then more of a red tinge around that. And if I looked at the moon, it disappeared. And I'd look away again. So I just blocked out at the moon. Maybe my hat was blocking out the moonlight, and I could see that again. Actually, I think it was on maybe astronomy picture of the day, or perhaps it was space weather. Somebody had a picture of that.
Okay. Well, what would that be caused by? Just moisture in the air?
Well, corona will do that. Yeah, it's a diffraction of the sunlight coming off the moon, and you can see that quite often. I've seen a couple of beautiful ones here just in the last month or two. If you're maybe in the kitchen, especially if you got a screen on your window and it gets fogged up, you see maybe moonlight coming through that, and you get to see a corona.
Yeah. Oh, like the evening sky right now in the east, like just is gorgeous. Like just there's so much in the sky to take a look at. You got the winter circle sitting there. You got Orion up there. Beautiful Betelgeuse and Rigel with the Orion Nebula. You've got Taurus. You've got the Jupiter sitting in Taurus all season right now. Right in between the horns. You get Aldebaran sitting there. You got Mars coming up with the Beehive cluster.
That's on the other side for
Saturn there, and I guess on New Year's Eve actually. We've got an alignment coming up. Venus is climbing higher each night right now. So we got Mars climbing higher each night. So we're going to have Mars we'll have Uranus and Neptune will be up there as well, but Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Venus stretching across the sky,
Yeah.
starting like on New Year's Eve and stretching right into about mid-January. So it should be a really pretty sky, coming forward. So it's
Yeah,
always
good.
like this. I mean, this helps the bite to get away from the bite of winter, to get outside with get that nice crisp air and the sky
Yeah.
just
You're up early enough in the morning, get out and take a look as well. So you
There you
get
go.
all of that starting to set. And
right.
if you're looking at maybe about 6 o'clock or so, you're getting Orion down, pretty
Mm.
much gone. But then the winter circlet, you're just seeing the top of that. So we
Right.
call that the winter arch.
Winter arch, okay. And watch Orion as it approaches the horizon too, how huge it looks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you can picture that fight between him and the bull.
Yeah.
Because they're sort of facing each other, pretty much the same altitude. And you got Orion with a big club up, ready to hit him, and the bull with the horns down.
I can see that a lot better when I've been up all night long, having had any sleep.
And a few nips to keep warm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks, Paul. There, King says, anyone know if we're at the right time to spot the ice cap on Mars? And could it be visible in a 5-inch scope? Are we at the right time yet, Kurt? I know we're coming up to
It's more than 10 arc seconds wide now, which is pretty much the minimum for a telescope view. And it's not going to get a whole lot bigger. I can't remember, it was maybe 14, 15 arc seconds. But yeah, this is now, because it's just next few weeks, it's going to be at opposition. So you should be able to get it up.
which doesn't mean that we're at the closest approach to Mars, right?
No, but that happens a day or two, a couple of days before opposition.
Right.
So we're not that far away.
David Hoskins just took some this week. So if you don't have his photos, he's got some really detailed pictures. I didn't look at them long enough to see if there's any caps visible, but
Oh, good. Okay.
I think a green filter might bring the white out.
yeah, you can just take a marker and
Good M41, the winter beehive. There you go. Mark.
AI or something.
That's a poor man's Pixton site.
All right. Thanks. Okay, so let's get to a few pictures that we got here.
We got lots. We still got 10 minutes.
Yeah, there's a good two. Okay, let me share screen. Two. Oh, it's going wrong. This one. Are we up there?
Oh, beehive.
Oh, beehive.
Nice.
Let me get my notes up here too. Notes are here. Okay. Here we go. Okay. This one comes from Carol B. Carol says this is a composite photo. Tonight, the other night, the moon is right beside the Pleiades cluster, though you'd never know with a quick glance as the moon drowns out the light of much fainter stars. However, if our eyes could adjust to the light, this is what we'd see. I took the photo of the moon the other night, she says, and the Pleiades on a night with no moon. So
There you go.
Yeah, that's nice.
thanks, Carol. And here's a capture. And a lot of them, night people, I had posted that Jupiter and the moon were close together. So we got a few people here. This one's from Cindy Morrison, Jupiter and the moon together. And we got one here from Shelley Brown. Last night from Sussex.
Oh, beautiful.
Nice shot.
Yep.
Thanks, Shelley and Muriel Helen.
Very
So
nice.
it's nice when it lights up the rocks, eh?
Yeah.
Nicely done. And Missy Chesson. Just popping up through the trees there.
Yes,
That's
sir.
Cassiopeia.
Yeah. And CJ Bernard. This one here.
Oh, that's nice.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah, nice shot. Robin Diane on the page here with his Galaxy phone. And another one here from Rob as well.
Right on.
So thanks a lot for all those.
Yeah, very nice.
One here from Robert Gadet. Robert says Venus through the trees. He said my Christmas quote star photo for Christmas 2024. Says zoom in on Venus. The spikes have rainbows inside them. So let's take a look at there. Here we go. Yeah, they do too.
Cute.
Oh,
Rainbows on the spikes.
that's cool.
Nice shot, Robert. Next notes are right here. Okay, this one is from Kathy Adams. Kathy got the triangle and galaxy there. She says, very rare to have two clearish nights in a row this year. She says, M33 with my Dwarf 3, about an hour, and in EQ mode, 30-second subs, gain of 60. I'm hoping for another clear night to try to get more data, she says, to combine. Clear nights are so few and far between. We've been lucky the last few. Nice shot, Kathy.
Nice work.
And here's her capture of the moon back in December the 13th as well, with her Dwarf 3.
Yes, sir. Nice detail.
Yeah, very nice.
Good shot. Thanks, Kathy. I'm going to move on to Francois Theriault here. Some of his captures are just incredible. I know. IC 1795, the Fish Head Nebula in Cassiopeia.
Yes, sir.
It's a huge star-forming nebulous region in Cassiopeia. It's neighbor to the it is neighbor to the well-known Heart Nebula. The brighter region is home to some bright stars that spew out massive amounts of ultraviolet radiation, causing the surrounding gases to light up like a neon sign.
Can you zoom in on that a little bit, Chris?
Absolutely, sure. Captured over 2 nights in narrowband. Telescope was a William Optics Zenith Star 80 ED. Focal length of 575 millimeters. The camera was an ASI 183 millimeter probe.
There you go.
There you go.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
see all that dust that makes up all of that interesting shapes and forms.
Yeah,
That stuff is so cool to look at.
that's hard to believe stuff's out there like that, you know.
Yeah. Very
Well
nice.
done, Francois. Exposure, total time 9.4 hours.
I know.
And another one from Francois here of the Horsehead Nebula, Bernard 33 in Orion. This well-recognized dark nebula. The Horsehead is caused by a large dust cloud obstructing a much larger active hydrogen region of Orion. The telescope again was a William Optics Zenith Star 80 ED, focal length 575 millimeters, camera ASI 183 mm Pro, and total time of 4.95 hours.
Very nice.
Obviously, we had a stable mount for that one.
What's
If you
that?
It makes you want to play chess, don't it?
Yeah, it does.
use a really good focal length and get it right, there's actually stars you can actually see right in the Horsehead itself, which
Okay.
are behind it, of course, but
Yeah.
but you can see them right. And because of this is shared, it's probably a JPEG. You can't see it, but the detail might be there in his original fit file. So
Exposure time 4.95 hours. Yeah. Wow. Thanks, Francois. Move on to Winston Koch's picture here. The open cluster NGC 1893 and nebula IC 410. Also see the tadpoles in the nebula. It is found in the Iriga constellation. The cluster was founded in 1827 by John Herschel. Nebula was founded in 1892. I also added M42 to it. So here's captures here. Good look around them.
did a nice job on the stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice capture.
And there's M42 here. Like Paul says, that's going to be the most photographed object in the night sky in the wintertime, right, Paul?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Yep.
That's be seen as number one for the summertime, though. Must be.
Looks like the mouth of a dune sandworm.
What's that?
Looks like the mouth of a dune sandworm.
Okay.
Oh, that's what it looks
I've
like
seen
too.
the movies, yeah.
But if you look at that in the center, right where the whitest spot is, that's hard to get.
Yeah.
Because that is so overblown a lot of times. And most of the times you either you have to take 2 pictures and blend them together usually to be able to get that. It looks like you've got a little bit of that going on, but anyway, it's nice.
Nicely done.
Yeah, very nice.
Good stuff, Winston. And move on from there to Chris Benoit's capture. He said, last night in the cold, he said, still fun, though. Nice to get Jupiter and
Oh, look at that. Look at the bands you got on that Jupiter. Nice.
Yeah. Gonna make Callisto a little hard to see, but I know they're there. It's great. Thanks, Chris. And Yves St. Germain sent these ones in. He says, here's 2 pictures taken last evening at McDonald Farm near Miramichi. One with the moon and Jupiter, and the other one with the Venus taken with my iPhone.
That's nice.
That one.
E-I-E-I-O.
Yeah. Thanks, Yves. I'm going to finally end up with this one here from Kim Huggard. I'm going to have to go back to that one. Just a minute now. I'm going to stop sharing for a second first. Just need a second to find it. I see it right here. Okay, I'll open that one up. And Kim sent me this one, but she wasn't sure whether it was an actual meteor or not, and she wanted people to speak up and let it, or for us, anybody speak up and let her know what we thought it might have been. So here is her security camera, and I know a lot of people, like if you're out looking for meteors, don't forget to go back and look through your security camera if you have one, because you may have captured a number of them through the night, right? I had captured from someone else who sent me in a really nice blazing one went across the top of their house. So she captured this on security camera, and I'm kind of hoping that you'll be able to hear it. I got my volume up as much as I can, I think, because there is a little bit of a whistling sound before it, and then a big bang. So let's see what this shows. Yeah, so somebody's doing target practice or at 4 in the morning.
Yeah. Maybe that was just.
Okay,
Deer hunters.
try one more time here. And I can't hear this
Yeah,
whistling.
I heard the whistling prior.
Yeah, so whether that's something along that line, we were discussing that, guys, eh?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
Well,
I don't know. I think it might have been the raccoon with a flashlight in his face.
Could have been. It could have been.
yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. That's out of my league. That's for
As
sure.
we mentioned before, we don't see any light going across the ground, so it was really bright meteor.
Yeah.
Is she by a highway?
She's at, I think it's a trailer park.
That whistling sound beforehand almost sounded to me like a tractor trailer going by on a highway,
Could have been, yeah.
and then a tire blow.
Yeah, you would have seen some light at least, and it might have been, maybe the video wasn't long enough to show that part of the light before the actual blast, but it does seem like there was enough time in there. But anyway, we're not quite sure.
No.
Still interesting. Nice capture.
Yeah, right, exactly. So one more
People
time.
claim to hear meteors at times, same with the aurora borealis. And it is perhaps possible that's not sound, it's the radio waves being given off. And if there's something like a spire or tree, somewhere acting as a transducer, change that into acoustic sound, you hear that sort of the whistling, or maybe not so much whistling as static. And I've read that it could be just the hair in your ears doing that. But then there are a lot of people that poo-poo that as well. So
Hair in your ears. Oh, okay.
I get it all the
I know
time.
us old men, that's happened to us old men.
I said I have tinnitus, so I hear it all the time.
yeah, that's what this is.
You need a trim.
You got a problem, Kurt.
Yeah.
Right?
You got a problem there, I think. Yeah.
What?
It looks like Kurt's waxing his brain.
Brain floss. Yeah.
Anyway, if you have any photos to share with us, we'd love to get them. So you can send them in to astronomybythebay@gmail.com, and we'd be happy to put them on the next broadcast. I didn't really get to a talk about what's coming up this week. Probably put it up on the page later on anyway as we go through the week. This is Lisa's lookup calendar that she puts out every month. Lisa's runs a page called Lisa's Lookup Astronomy and More, and you can find Lisa's chart there. She lists the event here in the first column, then the date of the event, the peak time for the event, and your seeing tools, naked eye, binoculars, or a telescope, what you might need. You find Lisa at Ruby Moonbeams on Instagram, Mastodon, Facebook, Threads, and now on Blue Sky. Hey, Lisa. Thank you for that. And Kurt puts together this great calendar for us. This is our December 2024, January 2025, so about 6 weeks there. Added up, we're into about here, I guess, now. So there's our full moon tonight, and here's lots of passes of the moons in front of Jupiter. TR is for transits, and then SH is for a shadow. The moon is going to be near Mars on Tuesday night, and right till the end of the weekend here, where we got the next week, where we got the winter solstice hitting us on Saturday. So
Start to get lighter.
Hmm?
It'll start to get lighter.
that's right. Yeah. So you can find that calendar at sjastronomy.ca. Just go there. You can download the calendar for free. Not too much in the world to get for free. So
Yeah. You want to point out there's a mistake for next Sunday?
I can. Oh yeah. So yeah, we'll be talking about that as we close tonight. Which I'm going to do in just a minute or two. I'm going to stop my sharing. How can I stop my sharing?
Hit the stop share button.
I did. He's a little slow tonight, like me.
Well, we all get there.
Oh, that all happens, yeah, for sure. Okay. So anyway, um, look, I got about 15 screens open. Just bear with me. So this was the one I want.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. So that's our show for this evening. Also, hope that you enjoyed the program tonight. Special thanks goes out to our local expert, Kurt Nason, for joining us again this evening. Thanks so much, Kurt, for that great talk. Appreciate that. Special thanks also goes out to well, I was going to say goes out to Rosanna. We do appreciate Rosanna.
Well, actually, I would just like to say, because this is going to be our last one till next year, or are we doing one before?
No, we're not sure yet. We might do a 29th one,
Just
but
in case.
yeah.
Just in case. I want to say thank you very much, Rosanna, for all that you do for the show. It's been as long as we've been doing it, and she does it every week, just like us and everything else. And so I just want to say on behalf of the whole SNAS organization, and you, which you are a part of, thank you very, very much for everything you do. It keeps us going and keeps things exciting, and it's always nice to have those wonderful fun facts. And for those folks who are out there on the YouTube world, just type in Rosanna's fun facts, and you can find a whole bunch of them on YouTube. That's that they've got done up as a video. So again, thank you.
Find her on YouTube. Yeah, and she does the talking actually then too. So yeah, she does.
Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you, Rosanna. Yeah, for sure. For that last year, and it's been 5 years now on the go. So special thanks to all of you who go out there and share our program for us. Remember too, we do love getting your photos, so send them into astronomybythebay@gmail.com, and we'll be happy to put them on our next broadcast, which might be on the 29th. So we are going to take next week off. We are getting close to the end of the year here and close to the holiday season. So we'd like to wish everybody out there a very Merry Christmas, first of all, and a very happy holiday season throughout. And we'll be talking to you all again, probably maybe on the 29th, but might not be till 2025. We'll see how things go. So until then, wishing you all clear skies. As we like to say, guys, open your eyes to view the skies and keep your scopes. Thank you. Pouring it up. You guys know. Good night, everybody.
Good night, Dick.